want to welcome everyone to the monthly Board of Directors meeting for Clover Garden School. I call the meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. Mrs. Verakin, will you please state the role and mission of the board?
Yes, ma'am. The role of the board: we are entrusted to care for the current school and stay focused on the vision for the future school. No trust, no unity, no progress. The mission: Clover Garden School will foster community, generate enthusiasm, challenge students academically, and produce successful citizens.
Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any changes or updates to the agenda? Have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I motion.
Mr. Brooks? Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Huffines, all in favor? Has everyone had an opportunity to review the September meeting minutes? Any questions, additions, or changes? Concerns? Have a motion to approve the September minutes? Mr. Brooks? Second? Ms. Foster? All in favor? Mrs. Brackman, do we have anyone for public comment?
No, ma'am. We do not officially have anybody signed up for public comment via online or on the street inside the school. However, there were some concerns from some parents that wanted the board to take a look at. So I did forward those to the chair and the vice chair. So, but no one has officially signed up for public comment tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Are they just letting?
There are emails that were sent to them. Okay, moving on down the agenda, finances. Ms. Simmons.
In your packet, you have our September monthly budget for approval. Any questions? It was also sent.
Who's in the packet? Any questions about the September budget? Concerns? I have a motion to approve September's budget. Mr. Brooks? Have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Huffines, all in favor? And 2019-2020 audit report, Ms. Simmons?
Yes, ma'am. I'd just like to provide an update. Typically, this time of year, we would have possibly or finalizing everything and getting everything ready to send. However, our auditor has sent out a release saying because of COVID, it has been very hard to get the third-party confirmations and a lot of items that usually come quickly, and they've all been delayed a little this year. So since there have been so many delays, the state has extended the audit report due date until January 31st, 2021. She does not anticipate it taking that long for our audit or to receive it back, but she just wanted to let everyone know that it may be a little bit later in the previous years.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Any other items for finance? Okay, academics, principals report, Ms. Moore.
Yeah, so we have a lot of great things to talk about with our principals report this go around. Congratulations to Clover Garden School. We were nominated, or we won the award for the 5th consecutive year as the Reader's Choice Top Charter School in Alamance County. Woo-hoo, that's always something to celebrate. We're super excited. We cannot wait to get our banner to display it. And then on October 28th, all winners will be published in the Alamance News. So thanks to everyone who has voted for us. Also, we want to give a huge congratulations to our athletic teams. So on September 24th, at the regional virtual meeting, it was announced that Clover Garden Athletics was awarded 3 Awesome Sportsmanship Awards for the 2019-2000 school year. And for the second year in a row, Clover Garden Athletic Department was awarded the All-Conference Sportsmanship Award for our high school conference, which is the Central Tar Heel High Conference. And then the first year is a new award. We won the middle school conference, same award, the All-Conference Sportsmanship Award. So those are all awesome things. Yes. And we were awarded again the Ejection-Free Sportsmanship Award. So a huge thank you to all of our coaches and our students, our athletes, and our fans for these awards. We could not do it without our athletic department and the hard work that they put in it. They walk the talk, and we could not be any prouder. And these awards, these pictures right here are examples of what they're going to look like this year. We haven't gotten them physically yet, but they are coming. Right before academic break and this week, we have got testing going on campus. Students are coming 2 times during the day. We have a morning group and an afternoon group. And these kids have been amazing. Coming into the campus, wearing their masks, social distancing, and coming in, taking their tests. And it has just been a joy to see them on our campus, because you know that's what we're all about, seeing our kiddos. And you can see a couple of pictures here. We truly appreciate our parents for getting their kids here. We know that dropping them off at 12:30 and during the middle of the day is not always the easiest, but we do appreciate that. And also wanted to let you know that we have a new SRO officer, Mr. Daniel Bellingham. We're super excited to have him. His picture is right here. He's got experience with patrol and bailiff experience, and he's excited to be a part of the Clover Garden family. He's at SRO school this week to learn all about it. So, and also, if you haven't been by our property has been bush hogged, and it is beautiful. And we owe a huge thank you to Mr. Derek Simmons for volunteering his time, his equipment, and fuel to complete this time-consuming project. If you have ever bush hogged a field, you know that it takes quite a long time, especially when you haven't done that field before. You're learning potholes and where rocks are and all that good stuff. So we truly appreciate him doing that for us, because now it is a beautiful place for our brand new signs. If you have not seen those yet, please take a few minutes, drive out there. We have shared the location of this property in many different ways on our website, there are videos on Facebook, but check it out. It is beautiful, and we're super excited about this new property and project coming up. And then, of course, we have some upcoming events. So for our faculty and staff, we have a Blue Shot Clinic coming up this Friday. The PSAT for our 8th and 9th graders is on October 27th. The PSAT for 11th graders is on October 29th. Daylight savings time. We always forget when that is. It's coming up November 1st. And then the pre-ACT for our 10th graders is going to be November 4th. And then our PTT meeting is scheduled for November 4th. We're waiting to share information on how that's going to be, if it's going to be in person or if it's going to be virtual. And then our next Board of Directors meeting is Tuesday, November the 10th at 6:30. I want to give you an update on our wait list. So since the last time we met, our wait list has increased by 25 students, and our current wait list number is 588. And then also this week is the free college application week, and we have got students, this is from Miss Nina, seniors are busy and have high expectations and dreams, and this virus has not stopped many of our college-bound students. The first rounds of early application deadlines last week, and some applications have already been submitted. So our kids are excited. They're thinking ahead of college. We've got kids applying and looking at Duke University, East Carolina, Elon, Harvard, NC State, Princeton University, Chapel Hill, UNC Charlotte, Greensboro, South Florida, Tampa, Richmond, App State, Wilmington, Clemson, Warren, Wilson. We've got kids looking all over the place for college opportunities, and I'm so excited about that. And then the last thing I want to let you know about is our Canvas update. So our Canvas team, Ms. Reagan, they have created an update for you that I want to share real quick. So they have been super busy. You know, Canvas has been a new thing here at Clever Garden, and our Canvas committee, before break, they met with all of our teachers, and they went through and made sure that everything was lining up for Canvas and Power School. If you're a parent, you know that right before break, we had the two synced together, and they worked super hard to make sure that that was a flawless transition, and we really appreciate that. They have reached out to our teachers and asked for feedback to find out the top issues that they experience and the students experience with Canvas, and they have compiled all that information and created a video that they're going to send out to the parents to kind of help with our second 9 weeks to help with all those issues. Also, our CGS blog we now have a new blog series called the Virtually Awesome Teachers, and they are showcasing teachers who are using Canvas in creative ways and reaching their kids. And then also I thought this was really interesting. So, you know, we have our Canvas Assistance email team. If you had a problem with Canvas, you could email them. Week number 1, they had 437 emails. Week 10, right before break, they had 85. So that tells me that our stakeholders, our students, and our parents are feeling better about Canvas and more confident about Canvas. And so that is always positive. And then there's just one other thing I wanted to share. So since the 19th, so I guess that was Monday, our teachers have put in 10,146 assignments for our students. They have had 2,880 discussion boards. There's been 18,000 files uploaded, and then 2,370 media recordings that our teachers have posted since the beginning of school. So they have been working super hard, and so have our students. And all this is really cool information. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Ms. Moore, just clarification, you mentioned about the Reader's Choice Award.
Yeah.
Did you say that it was going to be published in, I thought you said maybe the Elements News, but isn't it the Times News?
Yes, the Times News. Thank you for catching that.
And one other question. If I remember correctly, we've won this award for several years in a row.
Yep.
How many is it?
5th year.
Should we get a special poster?
I don't know.
A special sign, 5 years running?
That would be fun.
All right.
Okay.
You should get it.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Moving on to old business, the cross-country course. I've been in contact with Ms. Moyer, the athletic director, and what they're going to do is look at the property and determine the needs, what the fields are needed, and then probably work on the cross-country course around that. So they're going to get their proposal together and probably in the next few months look at presenting that to the board.
Some sort of course or something.
Well, fields and or course. So I have offered to go to a boosters meeting with a couple of the boosters and everything and walk through and discuss, you know, what they're looking at, what they need. Any of you are more than welcome to once we get that date when it will be, and we'll have Simmons go just to make sure from a financial perspective if there's any expectation or if we start looking at anything that would be presented. So that is the cross-country course. Title I, Mr. Aiken.
So as you guys know, we had that our Title I audit about a month ago now. So we are still waiting on results from that. I know some of the audits we've had in the past with other programs, it's taken about 3 months to get those results back. So we were just kind of in a wait and see kind of thing right now. So as soon as we get those results, we'll share those with you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Ms. Simmons, well monitoring reports?
Back in October, September meeting, we reported that everything had, the well monitoring reports had, that the samples had been taken and the test analysis, and we hope to be able to report the test results in November. However, we currently do not have those back, and we hope to report them in November.
Ms. Simmons. Okay, governance. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Ms. Lane. Ms. Ashley Lane is here this evening. She's expressed interest in becoming a board member, the community board member. As you know, we have an opening. So she's here tonight to observe. We're also going to speak with her a little bit later. And just want to welcome you. Glad you're here. Glad you're interested in being part of this organization.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So, committee updates. Governance, Mr. Brooks.
No updates as of this time.
Okay, finance. We will have an extended update during closed session due to year-end budget, et cetera. That's all we'll have for open session right now. Academic, Ms. Foster.
There was a meeting on September 25th with 12 members present, faculty and teachers, administration. Mainly during that meeting, remote learning was discussed and how things were going with that. They also began to talk about reopening school and how that would look. We will be scheduling a meeting with Mr. Hackney, Ms. Barakin, and myself after teachers have had a chance to look over some data, which they plan to do in the coming week.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Long Range Planning Committee, Mr. Huffines.
Okay, so y'all saw the new signs. We had 2 new signs put on the property last week, so great looking signs. Property looks great, as Ms. Moore mentioned in her presentation. So we got that going along. So last board meeting, I presented that we had 4 teams that we selected out of 9 proposals. And so October 2nd, we held all day long our presentations. We had 4 presentations, very well put presentations that day. And so as a committee, we made a selection on firm. And so at this time, we're working out the scope and the fee and all the details at this moment. So right now, they have submitted that. So as a committee, we're meeting Friday to discuss moving forward. So we can eventually present to the board the details moving forward. So that's where we're at.
Great, thanks, Mr. Huffines. We have one other committee that very important coming up in the next year. We have a huge milestone for the school organization. It's a 20-year committee. So we will probably, after the first of the year, start having regular meetings and getting that plan together, how we're going to celebrate. I think maneuvering through the fall and seeing kind of where we end up socially is where we've kind of held off on getting this committee together. And then mid-year Board of Directors work session is November 14th. So we will be on campus for about 4 hours just to review bylaws and go through governance and different things as a board and a team. New business, file marshal report, Mrs. Simmons.
Marshal report is in your packet. Fire marshal came in September, and we had just a couple of noted items, and maintenance has corrected
both items.
Perfect, thank you. And then also, Mrs. Simmons, the workers' comp audit for 2019, 2020.
For record, the workers' comp premium audit has received all of their requested information and acknowledged it and acknowledged receipt and confirmation on September the 10th, 2020. And I will update in November if there was any additional information that they needed.
Thank you. Ms. Verakin, the BTSP updates.
So this is our beginning teacher support plan. They have an annual beginning teacher summit every year. Of course, this year it had to be virtual, but Ms. Nicola, she is one of our teacher leads in middle school and high school in our English department. She is a partner in this, so she leads this program for us and makes sure that all of our beginning teachers have what they need and they're successful. And so there are a couple of legislative updates that took place. So what we did was the rules were if you had a beginning teacher plan on file, you just had to update it with the new information that was passed by the legislation. So you'll see I have black and white copies. You may not be able to see where it's highlighted, but you see the gray section. So what I did, I simply just changed it to match the new year. I did take out, there was a former teacher listed as the co-lead as the program coordinator. So I did remove that and just left Ms. Nicola there. But the one piece that we had to add was on the second page. So there is a graduate survey that goes out once a year. And so in order to make sure that these surveys get completed, they have now passed this in legislation where the beginning teacher and the employer survey, there are two of them, must be filled out by the school during the beginning teacher's first year of teaching as part of the requirements of the State Board of Education policy, the TCED 016. And this is to help measure the performance of educator preparation programs. So this information gets kicked back to the colleges, universities, things like that, so that we make sure that those organizations and institutions are preparing our teachers adequately for the workforce. I'm sure those programs are going to add a whole big section on teaching during a pandemic. I'm sure that'll be a question on the survey this year. But we get those around April. So this is just something that's another requirement that our beginning teachers must fill those surveys out. And then myself will have to fill that out as well. So we have to make sure we do that. And that's going to help, like I said, track how these teachers are doing and, keeping them in the teaching profession. So we just had to add that little section under section 1.
Does the survey come from the state?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that is the only two changes that we made to our plan.
Are there any questions or inquiries about the updates, changes? Do I have a vote or a motion to approve the updates to the BTSP plan? Mr. Brooks, second. Ms. Saunders, thank you. All in favor?
I will just need your signature at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Ms. Verakin, you're up again for the testing calendar for 2020, 2021. A lot of 20.
So this is really just information only. And it's just, this has already been shared to our families and things of that nature, but just to make sure our board has this as well. The testing calendar has been interesting so far this year, just in the given times that we have, but also just having different types of courses when we implemented our new schedule with block courses and year-long courses and things like that. So I'm gonna put a little disclaimer on this that's subject to change, and I will communicate those with you if that happens. But we are rocking and rolling with testing right now. We've been really blessed to be able to do our testing for check-ins in the building and some of our other testing is such as ACT, and we're planning to do PSAT and things like that. So this is just a copy for your records. This is our testing calendar for this school year as it stands right now. And then the second page is our check-in schedule. Check-ins are given 3 times a year. And so, again, that's been a challenge to get that scheduled this year and making sure that Ms. Cox has done a great job with that, Ms. Robin, on making sure that there aren't so many children in the building at one time. We've made sure to follow all our safety precautions and things like that. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but they have definitely worked to make that a good situation. So that is just for your information. That's our testing schedule, state mandated assessments, things like that, and then our check-in schedule, which take place 3 times a year. So once I get the next schedule, which will probably be around December, January, that will be our next round of check-ins. I will share that with you as well.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to you starting the next presentation, I just wanted to thank the Health and Wellness Committee, the administration staff, the CGS staff, students, and specifically the parents of Clover Garden School organization. I know that it hasn't been an easy 7 months maneuvering through changes, maneuvering through dealing with your normal workday, and also assisting the teachers, making sure the children have everything that they need to continue their education. I appreciate all of the planning, all of the discussions, all of the time that have been put into getting these plans together, making sure we're diligent in keeping the number one thing that keeps coming up about who Clover Garden is, and it's a safe environment. So I just wanted to express my thanks and appreciation to everyone who's been involved, but also the patients and the parents and the students adjusting as we've maneuvered through this unprecedented time in our society. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. June. Just one second, I'm going to share my screen.
So next up is reopening plans. This is a presentation information that Mr. Aiken will share with us.
Okay, so thank you, Ms. June, for that intro. This has not been an easy couple of months, that's for sure. But Ms. Moore and I and our admin team are very lucky to have such dedicated families, dedicated teachers and staff. And our Health and Wellness Committee have shared a lot of time with me. So we are greatly appreciative of those folks as well. It's an ever-changing living document right now. We're going to go through the updates as of October 20th, 2020 at 7 o'clock. That's going to be my disclaimer there. But this presentation, I'm going to go over with you. After our last meeting, you guys have had some items, some action items to come back and follow up on. So that is what I have comprised and put together in this presentation today, along with potential options for the next couple of months and in January. So you have a copy of this in front of you, but you also are welcome to watch on the screen. I'm going to move around since no one else can speak. All right, so general overview of this document. So this is the updates from our Health and Wellness Committee. This is posted in our last meeting, our board meeting was September 15th. And so this has the updates and progress that I mentioned, moving towards trying to reopen in January. And thank you, Mr. Fines, for catching that typo. January 2021. January 2020 is already come and gone, so
Let's not repeat it.
that's right. Moving forward. So governor's guidance on reopening schools. So if you notice on this page, the most recent data or the most recent information that we have gotten from the governor was effective beginning of October 5th. Okay, so as of October 5th, North Carolina Public School District and charter schools can choose to implement a Plan A for elementary schools, so grades K through 5, which include important safety measures such as face coverings, social distancing, symptom screening, and cleaning. It does not require schools to limit the amount of students that are in your classroom at one time. So that was a big change from the Plan B that I presented to you last time with all of those options in it. So that is the information and the most recent information that we have. These two links that you have in your email, but of course it is in front of you, but this is our NCDPI document. So it's a pretty thick document. It says you don't have to open those. So, sorry. Those are really thick. Okay, fine. So this bad boy right here, right here for read and enjoyment. This is the one from NCDPI. So this is a how to reopen your schools, and it's got the different plans. So when I say health and wellness team has been on it, they have been on it. We have tried to divide and conquer this document together, which again is ever changing. So luckily they're very nice and they put the updates in the front, so we know what updates they've made. So this is a document just for your reference. When I'm talking about restrictions or I'm talking about different plans, you can go back and take a look at that for yourself as well. The other document that we've been utilizing a lot is from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. That is our, the one you heard the governor talk about, is our Strong Schools North Carolina. So this is the others that have the rest of the state mandates in them. So it's beautiful. It breaks down the different plans. And you'll see the lovely red writing means you have to. Okay, so that's probably a good visual for you. All right. So they have recommendations, but they also have requirements in there. So I want you guys to know where we're getting this information from. When I say we have requirements, what am I talking about? This is where that information is coming from. So that is on that slide. You are welcome to open that up at any time. Okay, so summary of presentation from last month. So the way the world's changing, that feels like it was forever ago. But last month when we met, we reviewed Plan B and Plan C options. Okay, so we went over Plan B. So we talked about how Plan B is a hybrid schedule with rotating weeks of students. We talked about a staggered re-entry approach. I presented to you 3 options, which was the most aggressive, the moderately aggressive, and the least aggressive options. We looked at data and information as it relates to trends, patterns of the virus being spread. We also reviewed data collected from families and faculty and staff. We also reviewed readiness in relation to the current inventory of supplies and resources that we have on campus that are available to use when the kids come back. And then we talked about upgrades that were currently installed and in place. And then we reviewed COVID-19 screening procedures for bringing kids back on campus. And last but not least, we talked about Plan C, which is what we were currently in, and that is school-wide remote learning, K through 12. So just a quick little snapshot, just to kind of jog your memory of what we discussed last meeting. So during that meeting, we discussed the pros and the cons, or the positives and the negatives there. So just to refresh your memory, Plan B, we love that it's going to be face-to-face instruction for kids. That is a big focus point for all of us at this point, is trying to bring these kids back in for face-to-face. But there were quite a bit of negatives with Plan B that we were not quite ready to bring kids back. The transition between weeks on and weeks off, both kids getting acclimated to that, families getting acclimated to that, teachers getting acclimated to that. We talked about rotating teachers and how do you do this when you have classes that have not just 6th grade or not just 7th grade and they're mixed. Very tough to create cohorts that way, which is a big piece of what you'll see in the information, is trying to put your kids in cohorts so that you can track in case, COVID starts spreading. Not very consistent because the kids would have to keep adjusting every week. Am I remote this week? Am I on campus this week? We do not have enough staff members. So we are, a limited organization. And so that was a tough one. A lot of schools had said, we're just going to make Miss or Mr. such and such the remote teacher. We don't necessarily have that opportunity at our school. So sometimes in our middle school and high school, especially, one teacher teaches that course and that's it. Right? There is no other teacher to take over that course. So that was a limitation for us. Other things, so we talked about Plan C. So that was Plan B. We talked about Plan C. So some of the positives. So this was remote learning, okay? Positives were, they were consistent with what the kids were used to. So at this point, the kids have been doing this for about 6 weeks. They had gotten used to it. The positives of that were we didn't want to incorporate anything else new for the kids to have to learn. or our teachers. So we had just gotten our feet wet and we were finally running with remote learning. So that was a positive. And then of course, safest option for COVID-19. Okay, safest option to keep it remote. So other things, negatives of remote learning is it's difficult. That was our biggest con that we talked about with remote learning, is that it is not the same as face-to-face instruction. And anytime you have virtual learning or remote learning, you're gonna have technology issues and glitches, which we have seen and luckily have overcome a lot of those, but those were the positives and negatives. Okay. So after our meeting, you guys tasked me with, okay, so here's what I want. I want some updates. So some of those updates you asked for were, one, you wanted to meet again with health and wellness, and kind of revamp, restructure, redo. I just made that up, don't have to do what I said, but we had to do it again. So we took our plan B, we just put it to the side and said, okay, let's look at some other options, what can we do? So meeting with them, we also had a meeting with our Alamance County Health Department, which was fantastic. You're gonna hear about that in just a little bit, on current COVID-19 metrics, which is big. So we met with them and you're gonna get some information on that. You wanted to know about athletics. What do we do with athletics? Do we let them come back? Do we not let them come back? So today you're gonna see a proposal from athletics with a couple of different options. You asked me to work on proposals for bringing back. So what we wanted to do was have some focus groups. So even though we're remote, between now and January, we wanted to really focus in on a couple of different groups of children. And so you're going to hear about that today, about different types of children that are considered high risk that we would like to bring back into the building, into a controlled, safe environment between now and December. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit too. And then say, hey, can you meet in kindergarten? Cover kindergarten, right? Because they are our littlest of the littles. And so wanted to get some information from our kindergarten team, our kindergarten families. What would that look like? How many families would be willing to send their kids back to school? How many would not? So those are our youngest population of students. And then you asked me to continue the data collection. So looking at, we had a parent survey that went out in September, that closed in the middle of September. So you asked me to pull the data from that. And then reevaluate our Plan B, faculty staff survey, really look into those teachers that said, no, I do not want to return if we came back to school, or maybe, trying to dive into those and kind of find out what the reasons were why they didn't want to come back. And then you asked me to collect data just for us to look at again on area schools. What are area schools districts doing, or area charter schools? Okay. All right, are they on? Are they not? Okay. I can't see you there. Hello, Miss Nina. Hello, Coach. So Miss Nina and Coach are joining us for health and wellness today. They'll be there to answer any questions that you have. They are two of our members of our team. As I mentioned to you last time, our health and wellness committee is made up of parents, faculty members, staff members, and we do have a doctor and epidemiologist on that team. So there's going to be some good information for you there. Okay, so updates, just to give you kind of clarity on what have we been doing since our last meeting. So we most recently, now this committee, just to remind you, has been meeting together weekly or bi-weekly for at least 2 hours each time since May. So this team has been working on this since COVID, since COVID began for us. So we most recently met on October 1st, and we met again yesterday to discuss potential reopening plans for January, given the guidance and restrictions that are in both of those documents I mentioned to you earlier. So we talked about Plan B and Plan C in the board meeting last month. Today you're going to actually see a Plan A, a Plan B, and a Plan C. So those are one of the things that we discussed and shared and kind of tore apart. So you're going to see those today as well. And then the major concern for our health and wellness group, because again, they've been diving through this data and this information and guidance the most, and they're the most familiar with it, is the push for bringing back kids slowly. That has been a big push in this group, and especially with epidemiologists, is not doing things too quickly. So that has been a big concern for them, want to do things slowly, bring kids back in smaller groups, trying to help prevent the spread of COVID-19 and try to create those cohorts. Other concerns, so biggest concerns with teachers is, how do we do both? How do I equitably provide education to students that are in my classroom face-to-face with me, as well as do the same thing to the kids that are remote, that can't come to school, or we send you home because you got sick, those kind of things. So that has been a huge burden and stress on our teachers, is trying to figure out how to do that equitably and to do their best at it. So that has been another concern. Other things, just to thinking forward, is bringing kids back on campus. Those teaching them how to use protective gear, how to wear it correctly, how to do those things. You're just going to be a teachable moment, especially with our older population, middle school and high school. And in the mindset, and this is a biggie, and it's been on a lot of calls I've had with principals lately, is making sure that our families, that our students, and our teachers and our parents understand that school will not look like what it used to be. And so I say that because everybody's ready to come back and be just like it was. It's not going to be like that. Okay, there are still safety measures you have to put in place. Nobody's hanging out together in groups or in the hallways or in the cafeterias or in the gym in the morning. All of that would be different, bringing kids back. So that's been a huge focus of just making sure families and kids understand it's not going to look like it used to. This is our new reality. Hopefully we won't have to have it very long, but for now, that's what it's going to look like. So those were some updates. So we talked to you about all of this stuff at the last meeting, but I just thought it would be cool to put some pictures in here. So shout out to my photographer, Ms. Moore, over there. But we've gone around and kind of shown you kind of what this looks like in the building right now. You guys see the decals. You've seen the signs in the bathroom. And some other things that we have done. So if you look at that far left, that is our water fountain in building 2. That is now a touchless water fountain. It does work. Right now, I think our maintenance man and Ms. Moore might be the only ones filling up their water bottles, but it does count them. So we've already thought about, activities and goal setting and stuff like that for classes whenever we get back. But so that is our water fountain. Right here on the very top, middle is Ms. Cox's desk. If you've seen the commons area, she is just smack dab in the middle of everything. So we try to protect her a little bit and put up some glass around her. Straight below that is the glass that is up in the front office. So the same thing where she gets a lot of traffic over in building 2, front office gets a ton of traffic. So that was just another way to kind of add a barrier to kind of help prevent and keep them safe. Top right, shout out to Mr. Bone for donating these partitions for us. So our Mr. Whittington has installed these. You can see these in the bathrooms, but those are partitions, that separate the sinks so that more than one child can be in the bathroom at a time. Once we get into that, we will tell you that it won't be like it used to be where a whole class goes in there, but it does help kind of separate and kind of remind the kids about being separated. So shout out to him and for that donation. And then at the very bottom, those are hand sanitizer stations. So those are installed outside of the entire hallway on the K2 side, and then they're now in the middle school upper elementary side. So those are outside every classroom. Other things, far left, that was a prototype that Mr. Hall worked up for us as a way to kind of separate kids that sit at the table. So you got desks, you can separate those, no worries, right? You can separate those socially distanced, but if you're sitting at a table, it's a little bit harder to do. So he built us a prototype that we could put and separate 6 kids and keep them safe within the barriers. Decals, that's what the middle one is. We have utilized these. This is one thing we have utilized with having kids back in the building testing. They go to a blue dot. It's visible, it's good you can see it easily, and the kids have been standing on those dots when they come in for testing, so they've done a great job with that. And then the right is just an example of a classroom. And so any of you that have been in the elementary classrooms, that is not typically what the elementary classrooms look like, right? You can barely fit the kids in elementary classrooms, right? Because we have so much stuff. But this teacher's done a great job of trying to eliminate anything that's not needed and trying to separate the desks, limiting the amount of desks in the classroom at one time. So that's just like a quick little glance of what coming back to school will look like. You know, it'll be something similar to that with those safety procedures in place. And you guys stop me at any time, so any questions or anything like that. Next action item you guys asked me to follow up on was our Alamance County Health Department. And I will shout them out. They have been phenomenal. They have been fabulous. They have never acted like, you know, we were a burden. I'm speaking, Ms. Cox, you chime in here, but they have answered every question that we've had. They've been incredibly patient with us as we're learning about what to do and how to do it and all of those things. So they've done a fantastic job. So I put this up there at the very, very front because Ms. Cox shared this with me from another school, and Ms. Moore did as well. But safety trumps convenience, okay? So it's one of those things where I thought, well, that is, you know what? That's a very, very good slogan because we have to keep that in mind as we're putting these safety procedures in place. You know, for example, if we have a staggered drop-off, yes, it is inconvenient for you to wait 10 minutes and drop off your next kid, but it's going to trump that the safety is going to trump the inconvenience. And at this point, we just want to be safe. We want to be precautious. Like Ms. June said earlier, every year we do our survey, every year safety is ranked highest at our school from our families and what they're appreciative of. So that is just something that we have to remember as we're communicating to our students and our staff and our parents is that, you know, that's going to come first and foremost before anything else. And it's not personal. It is completely business and it's completely safe because that is what our job is to do. It's safe. So, second in the middle there. So we met with the Alamance County Health Department. Great meeting. Got a lot of resources, a lot of avenues to go down, calls to join, things like that. And then they even went one step further, which is really cool. So they have created a collaborative weekly meeting with area schools. So other leaders, other folks at area schools get one call once a week on Wednesdays, and they all kind of like collaborate issues, concerns. How's that working for you guys? What didn't work? And we're all learning from one another, which I think is, if there's one huge positive from COVID-19, it has been communication. It has been this opportunity where we are all leaning on one another because we all don't have the answers. And so that is one thing that's been really cool. And Ms. Cox is going to take it away here in just a moment, but she's going to go over this resource with you. And it talks about how to track COVID and how to keep track of how many days are isolated versus how many days are in quarantine and things like that. So we are getting this information and it's, you know, it's a lot to absorb. But again, the health department has been great in helping us kind of break down the most important parts of this and what to use it for. So are you ready?
I am. So as Ms. Bracken stated, these calls with the health department have been great. Normally I always feel like we're the outsider because we're competing against them and they have been open arms. And so basically on the first call I said, which one of you have opened and what are some feedback that you can give to us and share where we can incorporate some of those. We have a lot of the schools around here, including Hullbridge, Burlington Christian Academy, the Burlington School, Blessed Sacrament, the new Alamance Community Charter School, and we've got 4 representatives from the health department that are on these calls on a weekly basis. So a lot of these schools have opened up. Now just keep in mind, some of these that are private schools are not held responsibly or accountability for state and federal guidelines, okay? But most of them say they've got about 20 students in a class. They've got their students and their teacher's desk lined three ways for the plexiglass. Their lunches are in their room. The teacher stays in the room. The students do not leave the room. And one of the ones where we sort of stole that slogan from was because they had a different entrance for each grade level. So this particular school did, let's just say grades K through 7. They had 7 different entry doors for each classroom. So for me as a parent, if I had a kindergartner, 3rd grade, and a 7th grader, I'm having to go through that school line 3 times because I'm dropping off at kindergarten, and then I'm coming back around, I'm dropping off at the next grade level, and I'm dropping off at the next grade level. Because if one of the 3 are contaminated, they don't want all the grades to be contaminated. They're going to be able to isolate that close contact. So that's where they went to their community and said, guys, safety trumps the convenience at this point. We want to ensure safety, not only for the students, but for the teachers and the staff. One of the other things that they have done is they have added air purifiers in the classroom. So I am working on that right now as far as cost-wise, because a big topic that they have always talked to us about is that air purifier. We've got to consistency keep clean air flowing, because that is how it is spread. Then they went into the close contact, how people are notified if it's a positive test, what we should do. And they gave us great resources that are actually up here on the board here, which shows one child going through that whole step. And then they explained the difference between quarantine and isolation. So I don't know about you guys, but I think, okay, if I'm quarantined, I'm in the house and everybody else is isolated with me, right? That's not how it looks. If I test positive, I'm quarantined in a room by myself. My husband will be isolated in another part of the house. Now, with that being said, and with the guidelines that were gave to us today, my husband has to go through that 10-day process with me, but another 14 days, because that's an incubation period, and he cannot get tested until that 24th day. So as we move forward with this, again, safety trumps convenience. We're going to make sure that this building is clean and safe for these children, because we don't want to have to continue to shut down back and forth. That would be too much of a nightmare. And again, it would be very non-effective for these children who are ready to come to school to say, okay, well, you're here today. Well, now you got to go back home for 2 weeks. So as Ms. Reagan said, these are weekly calls and they have been wonderful. BCA actually has invited myself over there to come and look at their stuff if I wanted to. Our new charter school has asked that we can come over there. So this negative pandemic has really brought the communities together. And I love that they're able to share that, because we haven't started yet. So they're giving us all their problems and giving us solutions with that.
That's great.
Very good.
All right. Any questions? We still have another huge document we got today I'm not even looking at yet, but it's something new every day. So anytime that y'all have any type of questions, reach out to us, please, because I seem to think that's my Bible here lately.
Thank you, Ms. Cox.
You're welcome.
All right. The next page, and shout out to Dr. Vaughn on this. She has been imperative in just making sure that we're getting data, but not just any data, accurate data. That's been big, because there's a lot of stuff out there that's not accurate. So this is some information that is recent as of yesterday. Okay, so just to kind of put some things into perspective for you. So where did this come from? So the link that is on this slide will take you to the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, their dashboard. So this has been like our, where do we go to see what's going on around us? So as a reminder, we serve 7 counties of kids, kids from 7 different counties. So we have a lot to look at. We have a lot to watch that's around us. But our top 3 counties, Alamance, Guilford, and Caswell are right here close by, and that's where we pull a lot of our children from. So if you take a look at those metrics there, again, red's not good. That's not a good sign. But this is information as of yesterday. So if you take a look, she put together this for me directly from, like I said, the dashboard from the Department of Health and Human Services. But Alamance, Caswell, and Guilford. So the first one is the core indicators. So it's talking about the number of new cases per 100,000 persons in the last 14 days. So Alamance County, we're at 395, which puts us in the highest risk. Caswell's at 562, which is even higher, highest risk as well. And then Guilford's sitting at about 252, which is in the highest risk category as well for that spread. And then you have the percentage of positive tests during the last 14 days. Alamance sitting at about 8.2%, which puts us in a higher risk. Caswell is 11.3% of positive cases, so that puts them in the highest risk category right now. And then Gopher's about 5.8, which puts them in a moderate risk. So what you did for me is kind of summarize that down there in the bottom, so you can kind of see where that information is coming from. The last piece on here is at the very bottom, the third bullet talks about being able to implement the 5 key mitigation strategies. And she put us kind of in a moderate risk there because truthfully, we have not had all of our kids back on campus to be able to implement some of those mitigation strategies. So if you do click on that, the document, it will show you those 5 key strategies and kind of what, where we kind of fall in that document. So that has been very pertinent information and very eye-opening on that as well. So this is just to show you what the dashboard looks like. And you can go in there and click on your county. You can change the county. That way you can kind of see where that information is coming from. So that is where that comes from. And that is recent as of yesterday. The next page. So this is just additional resources to find COVID-19 information. So the first one is a website so that you can find various testing locations. That's been a big one from our staff. Is where do we go? Where can we get tested? There's a reference guide for suspected or confirmed cases or presumptive cases. That is very recent. We actually saw that again this morning on a meeting that we had, a webinar. And the last is, easy to follow guidance on how to quarantine if you are exposed. So these are just some of the documents that we have that are available, that are good, solid guidance to be able to share with our families, with our staff, and things like that as we are, training them to prepare for potential spread of COVID-19. Okay. Any questions about any of that? Yes, sir.
Does the Department of Health and Human Services have any recommendations about guidelines for reopening? I mean, is there a set standard where they want your community or your county to be under or over?
Like a range.
Yeah, a range.
Go back one page. I'm missing, there's a document that actually has. Mr. Brooks, give me a second once I'm finished, and I'll come back to that. I'll make a note because there's a document that actually shows how to be in the green category.
Right.
And I thought I had it on there, but let me write that down and I'll pull that back up here just a little bit. One second. But yes, it does have indicators. I'll show that to you in just a little bit.
Are any of our 6 counties in the green?
And we can play around, like I said, we can play around with that website and go back in there and take a look, see where they're at. And Dr. Vaughn is supposed to be joining us later too, to be able to answer. This is her forte that she does every day. So she'll be able to answer some of those questions for you too, I believe. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So going into the next one. All right, so one of the other additional updates that you guys asked for was about band, extracurriculars, and then athletics. So that's been really tough for us. And we pick and play that, especially during the holidays. I mean, administration, we were here every night, along with some of our parents that were here every night because there was some type of event that was happening on campus. And we missed that. We missed that a lot, being able to participate with our kids and watching them participate in our extracurricular activities. So, but just being realistic, looking at facts, things like that. I did have a meeting with Mr. Babb, of course, our band director, and just wanted some updates. Like, tell me what everybody else is doing. Some schools have gone back. How are they having a band program? That's one of the biggest pieces that Dr. Vaughn mentioned to us was just about the spread and playing instruments and singing and things like that, and how easy it was to transmit the virus that way. So what's an update there? So first of all, competition season is really big for our marching band in the fall. As of right before the break, when we had this meeting, all the competitions have been canceled. They do not have any competition scheduled. They have not tried to do any of that. They have canceled all of those. Parades. So at this point, the folks that he had reached out to, Meadow in Burlington hadn't confirmed any cancellations of their parades yet. Graham had said that the parade will take place. And then basically after we kind of analyzed that, the kids can't just get out there and perform. They've got to practice. They got to be in here. And so Mr. Babb said, it's not a good idea at this point. And I was 100% behind him on that. What we did prepare for is when we're able to come back, hopefully in the springtime, having some type of spring concert, spring parade, something like that. So we are looking at other opportunities once we're able to. But right now, we're not going to participate in any of those parades. Health and safety. So there are such things as instrument masks. Didn't know that was a thing, but they do exist. So he's looking into that. They are very appreciative that you guys changed some of the guidelines for them to be able to spend funds and things like that. So they are looking into some of those options right now to see if we can get the kids back, if they can play instruments safely. So there are some other schools that have put up partitions between kids or like in front of them to separate them from the kid in front of them. Some go as far to put them in a cubicle all the way around. But there are some options out there. So Mr. Babb is actively looking into that and trying very, very hard to have virtual band performances. But technology lagging is making that a little bit difficult, but he's trying. So everything's been on hold for band until the springtime. Next is an update. I'm gonna let Coach Moyer take over this. So athletics, North Carolina High School Athletic Association that we are a part of have been very on top of communication coming out from the governor's office. Just been on top of this for COVID-19 because everybody's policies and procedures have had to change. It's forced everybody into this unknown. And so they have worked very, very hard in modifying all of their procedures and policies. And sports, there's a whole lot of direct contact in sports. So they've been working really hard on this. So what you're getting ready to see, a couple of these documents. The first one is a live document. It's their sports manual. They are constantly updating that. So when you go to that, you'll see updates, but they have updated that for this school year. And then in this packet, Coach Moyer is going to go over this with you. But we've included, she's got an athletic start proposal that she would like to review with you. And then she wants to go over some of the required forms that the kids have to fill out, the adders such as the COVID-19 screeners, and then there's an amended calendar for this sports season. So our families have already seen the amended calendar, but just to be able to show that to you as well. So, Coach, are you ready? Okay, hang on one second, Coach. And then she wants to go over some of the required. Hang on, Coach, 1 second. Adders, screeners, and then there's an amended calendar. Our families have already seen the amended calendar. Let's see. All right.
Miss Franken, can you bring him over here?
I'm not sure, Dan. Are you good? Do you want, she hasn't seen the slides. Might just have to see. Coach, you just tell us what you want us to pull up because I took snippets of your proposals, the different plans, and put them in my presentation. But I also have the long, all the packet of information that you gave me too. So you just tell me what you want me to share. Hang on a minute. Hang on 1 second. You were on headphones.
There we go. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. If they've got everything, then I don't know if you need to pull it up. If there's something that they want to review over top, then we can. As Ms. Reagan said, you guys have what they call a live document. The North Carolina High School Athletic Association posted that just this past Friday. And they call it a live document because the only thing that they have specifically listed under the sports is the ones that are going to begin in November, and that's volleyball, cross country, and swimming and diving, which is the three sports that we are not going to participate in right now. But they call that a live document because they're getting ready to post the updates on your basketball since that's the next season coming up. So that document is is crucial. And it is very important. It's going to be something that we will follow guidelines, and they're very specific in the health and safety issues and what we have to go over with our coaches and stuff like that. But I have sent that out to my coaches and told them that they need to read this document and read it and read it and read it, based off the fact that we will start doing some training once we get the go-ahead. And we will be doing that by sport. Normally, a lot of things that we do throughout the year is based off of seasons, but we are going to basically do this by sport, and that includes with the parents' information and stuff like that. But I will go over just the START proposal. Put a lot of time and effort in this. I will say last Wednesday I sat in on an athletic directing roundtable that had 4 different schools that have already started athletics. One was out in Colorado, one was out in York, South Carolina, and then 2 of our private institutions, Charlotte Latin and Durham Academy. So it was very, very inviting, but also enlightening. And basically the gist out of that is they told us, do not plan for months, do not plan for 1 month. They said if you could plan 1 day to 1 week, that's the best thing, because they said it will change day to day and week to week based off of what is given and what we run into because of everything that is happening. So it was really good, and it's going to help us propose some things. The other good thing I will say is some of our conference schools are beginning volleyball. 2 of them, which is Chatham Charter and Cornerstone, and we had AD meetings last week, and basically they have been told that they're pretty much the guinea pigs for all of us, that they are going to be doing things and they are going to be getting back to us on what worked, what didn't work, how to do things. So that's going to be another big thing. But with the proposal that I'm giving, I'm hoping and keeping my fingers crossed, based off of COVID and your guys' decision going forward, I'd really like to do Plan A, and that would be my first and foremost. However, again, we need to look day by day and see what it's going to offer us. But my Plan A is basically beginning varsity girls basketball and varsity boys basketball December 7th, when the High School Athletic Association says that we can start. We're looking at not doing JV boys basketball due to the overlap of the varsity boys soccer, and I'll get to that in the new sport season when that comes. But games would begin the week of January 4th and continue through February 19th. There's only a total of 14 games that our teams can have, and in normal seasons, we're allowed to have 23 games. So we're cutting that quite a bit. And then we can only do 2 games per week max. In normal seasons, we're allowed to have 3 games per max. So that changes a lot in that perspective. If we can, we would like to begin them, like I said, December 7th, give the varsity teams a couple weeks, because when we bring those teams in, there's not going to be any overlapping. We have to bring them in based off of protocols. We'll have to do a cleaning. The coaches will have to be cleaning in a good 15 minutes to a half hour between the practices. We'll bring the next group in. So we can't have 2 different teams coming in the building. There will be an entrance and there will be an exit. They cannot come in and out the same door as well. But 2 weeks after that, in Plan A, I would like to begin the middle school girls basketball and middle school boys basketball, which we could start practice December 21st, which would be the start of break. And with that, the middle school conference has also cut those games down. We would begin games January 12th through February 11th, so we're looking at a month pretty much. And they're allowed a total of 10 games max, and again, only 2 games per week. When we're looking at our middle school conference right now, out of 6 teams, only 3 teams are actually participating in basketball. That's Chatham Charter, Cornerstone, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that's us. So that would be my Plan A. That would be the plan that I would really like to see happen. However, if COVID changes something, or if you guys say, you know what, that's a little bit too quick or too aggressive, I did a Plan B, which means, again, varsity girls and varsity boys, but we would not start until December 21st, which would be after, again, we're done with the second quarter and beginning break. We would still begin games January 4th through the 19th. That's not going to change. Max is still 14 games or 2 games per week. Middle school would then not start practicing until January 4th. That would give them almost a week and a half to begin practices before they have their first game, which would be the week of January 12th again. And again, that change is still 10-game max and only 2 games per week. My least favorite and, the least aggressive would be Plan C, which means we would have varsity girls and varsity boys basketball only. We would start practice January 4th. They would have their first game January 9th. And then again, everything else stays the same, but we would not do middle school girls or boys basketball. So just going forward and thinking of that, just how we begin athletics, those are my 3 different levels that I have proposed. And let me get back to why no JV boys basketball. Per the new sports schedule, if you guys see that, we're not looking at 3 different seasons, we're looking at 7 different seasons. So when you look at how varsity boys soccer is going to begin, normally we would be playing varsity boys soccer right now, but the High School Athletic Association has changed that. And they are going to start practice January 11th. Their first contest would be January 25th, and their last contest would be March 12th. So we're looking at a winter season for soccer, being outside. Now, why do I take that away? One, when we look at the boys that did play in the previous year, a lot of them would be playing both sports. Yes, per High School Athletic Association, they say they're allowed to play 2 sports in 1 season. But here's what is the negative part of that. They can only play 2 games of soccer and they can play 2 games of basketball. So if they have 4 games in that week, or if they have a game on the same night, now you've got coaches that have to make a decision on which team they go to. Which makes it very difficult. And then these boys aren't practicing. There's no practice whatsoever. When we look at the gym, if we have 2 teams or 4 teams, now we bump to 5 teams, that makes it very difficult to get teams in and out when we're looking at cleaning. The other one would be 2 pods or 2 cohorts. Now we've taken a boys basketball team and we have intertwined a boy that's in the basketball and in the soccer. So if we have that boy that gets COVID, he's now infected the soccer team and the basketball team, which doesn't make for a very good situation either. And then lastly, the injury rate. We know that our kids have not been as active as they should be in these games. None of them have been, well, not none of them, but some of them have not been participating in athletics. So the injury rate for these kids could possibly go up as well. So that's why we have kind of pulled JV boys basketball out just for the year. Definitely want to get it back in, but feel that there could be more harm and damage if we allow that to happen. And, the other thing is we may not have a team for either one if that's the case. So I have listed, and I'm not going to go through everything. Obviously, you are able to read, but I did list, guidelines as to what our coaches are going to be expected to do, how I'm going to do my parent meetings. My parent meetings I would like to do probably via online, where I do the girls varsity basketball team. I'll have a meeting with those parents and go over things step by step, because as Ms. Bracken said, communication is going to be the key, and that was one of the things I got out of that roundtable last week, is you cannot communicate enough with our parents each and every day, and as changes occur. And again, the parents, like she said, I really like the safety trumps convenience, and I know some of these situations with what we're looking at, spectators may not be able to be in the stands. We're just going to have to realize, and as they said in the roundtable, that these parents are just going to understand that we really have to follow these guidelines and the safety precautions in order for our kids to play. So if they want them to play, we're going to have to just, have safety over convenience, no doubt about it. I have given you guys the COVID-19 form packet, and this is just for you guys. Again, these are initial screening packets. These are the forms that High School Athletic Association, like I said, has done step by step as to what happens when a kid has been diagnosed or has a screening question or has a temperature, on how we're supposed to handle those. The forms that are there, we don't have to come up with those forms. It's all part of the High School Athletic Association. These will be I will it in, maybe looking at doing a DocuSign, once we get more communication out to the parents to find out who will be trying out and things like that. That protocol is not gonna change one bit. But, that's short of that. You guys have a lot of documents that I've been reviewing and working with, for a while, but, again, as I said, it's a day by day or week by week. We can't plan within a month, so, we just kind of have to kind of sit back and see where we're at. But if you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer some of them.
Do the conferences have any requirements as far as testing?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Do the conferences have any requirements as far as getting a negative test? As far as COVID testing goes?
The conference doesn't, High School Athletic Association, in that 48-page document, it goes over those protocols, what happens when there's a positive, what happens if there's a negative. There are the forms in that packet that gives you, if they are tested positive, what has to happen, and the doctors having to sign off, things like that.
Well, that's if you get a positive test. My question is, are they requiring us to do any testing before the kids can play? Do they have to show negative?
No, the only thing they have to do, and you'll see that if you look at the COVID form packet, I give the explanation of the attached form with the next page. That page is the only document that every athlete will have to fill out, basically saying that they don't have COVID. So that's the only thing. We are not required to have any testing done prior to saying that they are negative.
Okay.
Just the temperature checks, and then that long form that we use for graduation, that's the form that will have to take place each and every day on every coach and every player that comes in the building. And that is the form that we will use for game day protocol as well.
Thank you, Coach Moyer.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Coach.
That was sweet.
Hello, Dr. Baum. I'll be asking you some questions in just a little bit. They asked me some questions earlier, you may have heard them, about that key indicator sheet that you gave me.
Yeah, I'm sorry I had to join a prior meeting, but yeah, I'm happy to answer whatever questions that I can.
No problem at all. So I'll jump into that here in just a little bit, but just FYI. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so next action item that you guys asked us to follow up on is, so we had a need to be able to bring back certain groups of children. This is tough, a very, very tough decision because of course we want all of the kids back, but there are certain children that we have put in categories as considered high risk. And when I say high risk, I'm going to kind of talk about the different groups and different cohorts that we would like to begin starting on November 2nd. So there are 3 cohort groups that we would like to bring on campus. We have discussed these options and things with other principals, other leaders at other schools, and they have given us the tips of the trade and how to make this work successfully. So our testing and bringing kids in on campus was a good start for us to be able to see, okay, can we make this work? Can we put these procedures in place? And so now we just kind of want to take another step, and what can we do between now and December safely, of course, to be able to target some specific children that are just not being very successful with remote learning during this time. So there are 3 proposal requests that we've kind of drafted up. So 3 different cohort groups is what I would like to bring back on campus. Keeping the cohort group to 30 children or less. So of course that would be no more than 90 children on campus on any given day. So the first group, and I'm going to shout out our student services support team that is comprised of Coach Moyer, our social worker, Ms. Alvarado, and Ms. Quimby, who is our MTSS coordinator. And then Ms. Moore and I joined them as well. But I'm going to shout out those ladies. They have worked very hard supporting our teachers and supporting our kids and our parents. So they have been the ones that have, if your child has not shown up in a day or so and
have not completed any assignments, they are on the phone. They are working out something. They are meeting you at the car, or they're meeting you on the porch, to try to walk through things with people while they're socially distanced. So they have been working very, very hard to get kids engaged that have not been engaged for various reasons. So this team has put together a group of children that we would classify as high risk. So what kind of criteria were we looking at for this group? So those criteria includes lack of attendance in their courses online, lack of completion of their work, unreliable internet service, no supervision or guidance at home to assist them with completing assignments, et cetera. So those have been some of the highlights. Those are the kids that we've been kind of honing in on because they're not getting a whole lot out of what's going on right now. And those children they would just benefit more from face-to-face instruction. They do not have the same resources particularly than everybody else has. So, so that's some of the criteria that we looked at. Want to make sure I'm clear, there's no direct instruction going to take place. All of our instruction is remote. That has not changed for the next 2 months. But for these children, there would be a person, a staff member that would oversee what they're doing every day. A lot of our kids that are not being successful don't know how to navigate Canvas. They can't navigate the internet. They don't have good internet. Some children were trying to use their phones and not the computers. And so those kind of things we run into. But this would give an opportunity where we would put these kids in different pods based on their ages for K-12. So kind of separate them out so there's not so many at a time. And then have some of our staff members supervise these kids. Make sure they're staying on track. Make sure they're completing their assignments every day. Someone to sit beside you and go through your schedule. Okay, what class do you have today? What assignments due today? What videos do you need to watch? What are your assignments that you need to turn in by the end of the week? That is some of the things that these kids don't have. So this is my first focus group, and I appreciate Ms. Quimby. She put together a PowerPoint. So the document that I sent you electronically, you can open that up. But that's just kind of a PowerPoint of why we want to do this. And then just an example of a parent letter. So this is something that we're allowed and you guys approve us to move forward on, that we will need to get communication out to these specific families. And my thoughts and hopes is, you give it to specific children, but they may not exactly be able to take you up on that offer. And so then it would open the doors maybe for, other opportunities. So that is our first group, and it's specifically driven around those key criteria areas. The second group focuses more on our EC population, our special needs population. There are some children that we have on campus that are also not being as successful during this time of remote learning. So same exact numbers, less than 30 criteria that we looked at for these groups of kids. Lack of attendance in their courses online, their environment at home impedes the progress for the kids, and the nature of the services is just more appropriate face-to-face. So there are certain children that need certain services and things like that are just more effective face-to-face. So this is our second group that we would like to work with. And, we've toyed around with some of our kids that get the related services. They're getting them all virtually right now. But to be able to look into the option of, coming in for speech services or things like that. So looking at a lot of our related service providers and seeing if we can get some of these things done face-to-face safely. We have had a couple of evaluations completed by the school psychologists that we contract out, and those have been very beneficial. They have social distance. They have, worn face shields and face masks to get the kids separate, and there's no changing of paperwork or anything like that. So we know it can be done on a one-on-one setting like that, but we would like to look at that potential for our EC population. And our last group is more of a child care request. So our faculty and staff, again, I'm just shouting them out again, they have blown us away. They have been phenomenal during this time of remote learning. It gives me goosebumps. But their own children, personal children, have suffered a bit because mom or dad is teaching children all day long. This remote stuff keeps going. It doesn't end at 4 o'clock. And it appears you're getting home and asking questions at 7 o'clock. Our teachers are on it. They're emailing families back and being just awesome as they are. But their children also need some help. And we want the teachers just to try to alleviate some of that stress. Like I said, they are doing a fantastic job of trying to balance being parent and teacher.
But we want to give them the opportunity to work on campus and have their child supervised. So a lot of our folks, if they bring their child on campus, they're in their classroom with them. And, you know, as much as, you know, you tell them, get that done, when I come back over here, it's going to be done. It's a lot easier to do that if you've got somebody that's looking after them and can kind of stay on top of them. And then you as a teacher can kind of detach and put on your teacher hat, and that's it. And then you take that hat off, you put your parent hat on, and you go home for the day. So that has been one thing. This morning, we asked the teachers to do weekly reflections, and that's been an opportunity for us to really kind of see what's going on with them and their social emotional needs and things like that. And that's been one thing that we would like to implement if given the opportunity, is simply, you know, childcare for their children, their personal children that are school aged, so that they go and the teacher knows that when they get done at 4 o'clock, they can take their kid and then go home and be a parent, right? And not have to do now all the remote learning that hasn't gotten done because they've been teaching all day. Now let's go home and do that as well. So it's just an opportunity to support our teachers, give them the opportunity to have childcare for their kids. We did a preliminary survey for this, and we had about 13 kids, staff children, that would sign up to be here daily. And then we had about 8 kids and 9 kids that would be here maybe 1 to 3 times a week. So we did get some information on that as to who would utilize this. So I think it would be phenomenal for them to have that opportunity, and it's there if they need it, and if it's not, it's not. But it's small enough for us to be able to cohort it and keep those kids together. So those are the 3 focus groups that we would like to begin. Ideally November 2nd, and run it November 2nd through December, just during this time. So those are some things that, again, I would like us to look at later and ask me questions about and all that good stuff. But I would like to try to meet some of those needs now versus waiting for later. Okay. All right, moving on to data collection. So what are some of the things we have looked at, some of the things that you guys want to look at? So what we did was we put together to kind of like a snapshot, a review of our parent survey results. So again, we sent that survey out to our families in September. And that survey ended, I believe, on the 18th of September. And so this is going to be data that we collected directly from that survey. So we surveyed our families over the summer, like right before school started, I believe it was. And then this is the second survey we sent them. And then, of course, after tonight and moving forward, we'll survey them again. So I greatly appreciate their willingness to fill those surveys out for us. They have put a lot of great information in those surveys with concerns and needs and wants. And so we greatly appreciate that. And I'm going to share a little bit of that with you tonight. Other things, just reviewing our Plan D staff survey results, reopening plans for local school districts and charters. So kind of looking at what they're doing right now. Everybody's kind of in that decision-making process right now, so we're kind of all neck and neck on that for what to do semester 2. And then I met with the kindergarten teachers, Ms. Moore and I did, and then we sent the kindergarten families a survey to kind of see what they would be willing to do in January, and then substitutes, right? So if we do bring kids back on campus, there will be times where the teacher will not be able to be here. Either there's, you know, they're at a high risk themselves, or they do get sick and they have to send them home. So do we have substitutes? You know, this is a very scary time to be a substitute. So we're gonna go over a little information with you about that. All right. So the first one is our parent survey results. So we had 376 responses from our families. So it was you know, a good turnout. We had 655 students at school. So again, a lot of those families double dip. They have more than one child. So overall, so we asked them a couple of different questions. So I kind of pulled out the highlights for you here. But one of the questions we asked was, hey, how's your home internet service working? Okay, how's that working for you? Are you able to keep up with the demands of remote learning? So 73.7% of our families said, hey, you know what? It's working great. Okay, we're able to hang on, we're able to stay with you, and the kids are able to turn in what they need to turn in. Side note from that, and this is not part of this, but just wanted to add the hotspots in here. We were able to just recently, the governor's office, state called us and said, hey, finally, we got an opportunity to give you some hotspots. So right now, I'll have hopefully more data collected For our kids that have no internet or limited internet, give me a number, like 19? Families?
We've received 34, and about 80% have already been picked up. So I would say we're really talking about 6 different families
That have not
that
gotten
have
theirs.
not picked theirs up yet.
So we were able to get enough hotspots to provide them for all the children on our no internet or limited internet list. And so that is, it's a better late than never, right? And so this quarter two, we gave those to them right before the break with the intention to practice over the break. And I don't know how much of that got to take place. People were going different places. So we're hoping this week to get some more data in on that to try to help with the internet situation. So that was a huge blessing for us and to our families that were on that list. So next statistic, so 91.8% of families, so we had them rate the level of support they were receiving from their child's teachers, administration, across the board. So we had we had 91.8% that gave us a rating of 3 or higher. So it was out of 5. So that was great. 84.1% of our families said that our technology is provided, and we provided them is working effectively. So I thought that was big, and a shout out to our tech team. We had a little bit of transition in our tech department at the beginning of the year and made us a little anxious, but shout out to Steve Joyner and his consulting firm. They have stayed on top of those emails and tried to get back with families, and if it doesn't work, we're here to fix it. We're here on Tuesdays. We'll come back if we need to. So shout out to those guys. But so 84% of our families said the technology is working effectively. Another question we asked was, okay, is your child considered high risk as it is medically? So is your child at a medical high risk for contracting this virus? And 12.5% of our students at Clover Garden are considered high risk medically. And this is, from their families that have submitted this information. So just to kind of put another lens on when we're looking at our student population. We asked our families, would you like your children to return to Clover Garden School in some type of hybrid learning format? So, a half face-to-face, half remote, that kind of situation. And 76.3% of our families want their children back, okay, in some type of format. So these are all great statistics that we use to, how can we compromise, right? You want your kids back, but we want to be able to manage what we're doing, because we're doing remote and we're doing in person. So you're going to see some of those come up in the options that we're going to talk about just a little bit. And last but not least, 23.7% of our families, no matter what we decide, are going to plan to keep their children remote. So that is as of September. Okay. The next survey we looked at was our faculty and staff survey. So this is one that we surveyed our staff and said, hey, if we return on a Plan B schedule, would you come back to work? Okay. Would you feel comfortable being here, teaching on campus with children in front of you? So according to this survey, about 46.7% of our staff said yes. But I tell you, there was caveats over to the side. Yes, but got to make sure all these safety procedures and precautions are in place. And they were all very valid explanations, but you had a solid yes. 16.7% said no, I would not feel comfortable. I either have a relative, a family member, a child, someone that makes them susceptible or themselves, put them in the high risk category. So that was a lot of the explanation behind the no's that we received. And then 36.7% fell in the maybe. Next time I do this one, I'm not putting a maybe on here. So 36.7% of them fell in the maybe category. In the maybe categories, it was very much repeated concern with, how do I do that? I want the kids back, but I cannot, I'm barely hanging on, teaching what I'm doing right now, trying to teach kids remotely all day long and make sure I get every one of them feedback, and it's constant, and they email me, I get them back. Yes, I want it, but how do I make it happen, right? How do I make it happen, and how do we do that safely? So that's where your maybes came in there. Okay. And the next piece of data that we're looking at, I know we talked about some of these little last meeting, but and I apologize, it's kind of a little screen, but we looked at area districts, and policy and information there. And Again, you read the news like we do, you know, things change depending on situations and cases and things like that, but we decided to pull locally. So, you know, Randolph County, this Burlington school system, Guilford County, Castle County, Rockingham, you know, that's kind of our surrounding area counties. And then we pulled for some other charter schools. So, you know, River Mills and Graham, Expedition Schools in Orange County, Alamance Community School is the new one in Haw River, and then Haw Ridge Charter School, which is down there in Saxon Hall. So those are some of our area charter schools. And then we looked at private schools just for kicks, you know. We've got these job documents, you know, and they're looking at those, but ours are a little bit more restrictive because we are a public school. But we did want to look at what they were doing as well and what strategies they had in place that were successful. So Burlington Christian Academy, Alamance Christian Academy, or Alamance Christian School, the Burlington School, Blessed Sacrament, and Bradford Academy. So we wanted to look at some of those that were local as well and kind of let you know, well, what are they doing? Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Moore. There is a link again in the email that I sent you that will pull the spreadsheet up at the very top, and she's going to kind of go through that with you, just give you some information.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm just gonna kind of hit the highlights. Like she said, we did look at the big schools around us first. So Randolph County, I would say they've been like the most aggressive, which surprises me because they're normally the last to make any decisions about snow or anything like that. But they started back with their middle and high school kids with two different options. So they could, number one, plan one was 2 days face-to-face instruction and then 3 days virtual, or they did plan 2B, whatever, which is 100% virtual, and that started in September on the 28th. And then on October 26th, they're bringing back their elementary students 100% unless they chose to do 100% online. Alamance Burlington School, they have recently changed their policy, but elementary, they've got cohorts, so they've got, you know, the Monday, Tuesday cohort, they're the blue group, and then you have the green group that are coming to school, and then Wednesday is gonna be your clean day, your virtual learning day, and that's gonna start on the 26th of October. And then in January 15th, they're gonna continue with remote learning until that date for their middle and high school students. And then Guilford County, so for elementary school on October 20th, their pre-K through second grade is gonna be in person 5 days a week. And then starting on November 4th or the 5th, it depends on election and if the school's being used for voting or not, their 3rd and 5th grade students are gonna come back, or 3rd through 5th grade are gonna come back. And then for middle school and for certain 9th through 12th grade, the vulnerable student population is kind of like what Ms. Reagan was talking about. They're gonna come back on an AB schedule on November 12th. And then their high school is going to return with an AB schedule on January 20th. Castle County Schools, the most up-to-date information that I could find was from July, so I don't know if this has been updated or not. But they had the two options, kind of like Randolph County. So plan one was 100% virtual, which started in August, and then the second plan, which is 2 days face-to-face and then 3 days of individual practice and enrichment opportunities away from school. And that was both for elementary and for middle and high school. Now we've got our local schools around us. So River Mill Academy, they are going to be remote all the way up until at least the first semester, so until January. My brain. The Haw Ridge Academy is doing the same thing for their elementary kids, so they're remaining in Plan C during the second quarter, which is 100% online, and then Plan B with the opportunity to go in Plan B, which is 50% for the third quarter, and then they are doing the same thing for their middle and high school students. Burlington Christian Academy, a private school, they are 100% on campus 5 days a week. And then same thing with Burlington School, the Bradford Academy in Mebane, Their elementary is doing a half-day schedule, 5 days a week, and they started that on August 12th. And then their middle and high school students are doing a full day, 5 days a week, and that started on the 11th of August. Blessed Sacrament, another private school, they are 100% capacity, 5 days a week, and they started that in August. Then our Alamance Community School, our new charter neighbor, they are at 50% capacity with the A, B cohorts, and Wednesdays are their deep cleaning days, and that started on September 28th. And their middle and high school students are doing the same thing. Chatham Charter in Siler City, they just closed yesterday for 2 weeks due to a positive COVID testing. My understanding is that person was around a lot of different people. So that's why they chose to close. But their plan is to start November 2nd with kindergarten every day, and then 1st through 5th grade on an AB schedule, and then their middle and high school students will do the AB schedule. And then Cornerstone Charter in Greensboro is at 50% capacity with the AB cohorts, and Wednesday is all remote, that's their cleaning, and they're gonna start that on October 26th. Eno River is all remote, and I couldn't find a date for when, But then Raleigh Charter, they are remote for the first quarter. Research Triangle High School, same thing, all remote for at least the first quarter. Woods Charter, kindergarten is on campus, and that's all I can find about them. And then Kestrel Heights, that's a high school in Durham, they are all remote.
Does anybody know why Guilford County canceled the October 20th kindergarten date?
Guilford County?
They've been,
Yeah,
that was
we
just
started
last
on
night.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, I missed
facilities
that.
based is what I heard.
That was facilities based?
That's what I heard, that their, some of their facilities were older and the capacity for, getting cleaning for those was.
Well, I believe it was also the metrics was the driving force as well. The metrics were too high.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were in red, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. Very good.
I know that Eno is all remote through Christmas, or through the rest of this year.
Caswell is also all remote through the first semester.
Thank you. I figured that was not the most up to date, so thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Moore. So the other data we collected, so we met with our kindergarten folks, and just kind of, bringing those kids back first and what that would look like and what the needs would be. And that was a great conversation. We had a couple of meetings with them, and shared what are your concerns, what do you think is going to be the biggest issue, those kind of things. So we met with the teachers and the teacher assistants. So some of the concerns was, just we had talked about potentially bringing kindergarten back prior to January. So that was our last conversation that we had. After conversing with the teachers, and running potential options and things like that, there was a lot of nervous, anxious type of feelings, simply because of the unknown, and not knowing what cold flu season was going to do, and those kind of things. Holidays was a big one, bringing them back, and then, families getting together for the holidays. There was some concerns there from those teachers as well. So, big one that they talked about. So by the end of this meeting, it was kind of okay, so we do not feel as confident as we did, a couple of weeks ago. Still very positive and gung ho, but just kind of reality, I think, started setting in, and it was, okay, how do we do this? How do we do remote at the same time while we're teaching in the classroom? And so the big thing we talked about was stamina. So all of our kids are gonna have this issue. Our family, our teachers too, because they've been on their totally different schedules. But stamina. These children have not sat in a desk for 6 to 7 hours a day in 10 months. So just being realistic, not just kindergarten, everybody, like trying to sit, our poor seniors without ACT. I think that's the longest they have sat in one place in for a very long time. So that is a big key point that they brought forward, and I said, that's a great point you make, stamina for these kids. So they worked on a plan to how we would do this.
And so you're gonna hear me talk about this because it was great, and we have actually heard some other schools utilizing this, and it was like, okay, it started kind of clicking. How can we get these kids back on campus, but also have time for our teachers to teach ultimately two groups of children, online children and face-to-face. So they said, Ms. Reagan, can we look at a potential half-day option? Okay, and so there's positives and negatives with that. But the biggest positive for that was it's a compromise between the biggest thing our families want is kids to be back on campus. That is it. They want their kids back, okay? Biggest concern with teachers for that is, sure, but how do I do both? How do I give you feedback and you instruction while you're here with me, but then also do the same thing? So a half-day schedule would allow for that. Now, that is not the most, easiest way to make that happen for our families, because it's in the middle of the day, and I'll talk about that a little bit later about positives and negatives, but that was a fantastic idea for, okay, our teachers can feel like they have enough time because they can teach in person. Our families get what they want because the kids are back on campus for half a day. The kids get that one-on-one, face-to-face, which is what we have not been able to have this year. And then they'd have the afternoon to work with remote learning children and to make sure that those kids that are at home that are getting the same education that the kids are getting on campus. So that's a big piece of a driving force behind all of our decision-making this year has been equitability and how do we make that equitable for all children. So great idea that they suggested there, and even as it relates to stamina and building up that endurance again to be back in school. So we talked about that. And then we talked about, okay, let's send a survey home to your families. Just want to see I want a truer picture of how many families are going to send their kids back versus how many kids are going to stay remote no matter what we do. So I just wanted to get a better picture. And this is something that I plan to do with every grade level, so I can have specific numbers for kids that are staying home and kids that are coming to campus. So after we had much deliberation, we felt that it was in the best interest to mess with the kindergarten, keep them the same as everybody else, and bring them back in January. So the survey we sent home, so we asked them a couple of questions. This went to the kindergarten families. So kindergarten was on a plan B, such as alternating heads by week. Would you send your child to school? So just want to know, would you send your child to school on some type of alternating schedule? We had 86.2% of families in kindergarten say yes, and 13.8% say no. Now granted, we've only got 20, 40, 58 children, and there's 65 responses. And I just want to point out that variable there, that somehow we got some extra votes on here. But overall, by landslide, yes, we would send our children to school. Next group, so kindergarten was on plan A, so this was a little bit different, right? So plan A has less restrictions, things of that nature. Would you send your child back? Same thing, 86.2%, absolutely, 13.8%, I'll keep them at home with me. All right, and then last but not least, transportation has been one of the things that we've talked about, that is a program that is still pending. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But could you bring your child to school if we did not run our buses? If we did not run our transportation system, you had 96.8% that said, yes, absolutely, I'd be able to bring my child to school. And you had about, 4%, 3% that would say no.
Did you get to survey the half a day question?
No. Not yet. Not until you give me some further guidance on that. But yes, that would be our next group of surveys, would be specific to those plans, and if those numbers would change a little bit.
You said we got 58, right? 58 students?
57.
Huh?
2020, 17, 40, 57.
57, okay.
She was in second grade, man.
We had it together. So that was it for that piece. So that was kindergarten and just information about kindergarten families. And that is the type of survey that I plan to send out next. So once we kind of talk a little bit more about which direction we want to go in, that'll be a little more specific with our families, because that's what our teachers need to know to plan. So And then last but not least, a piece of data that you guys asked me about, or you didn't ask me about, didn't know to ask me, but talking about substitutes. So that's a big thing with bringing kids back on campus. Somebody's got to be responsible for them. So if you got to have some type of supervision. So if the teacher gets sick or something happens, there has got to be a teacher in that classroom to supervise those children. And so this was really positive. So our human resources department over here, Ms. Simmons and Ms. Cox, they held a substitute orientation, /training in September. And it was fantastic. They actually trained 10 substitutes. There were 10 substitutes that are fantastic folks. And they are willing and ready to come back to the building where we are. So that gave us a bit of positive light at the end of the tunnel. So we know that when we are able to be back in the building, we will have at least 10 folks that are willing to be back in the building. So that is it for the data. Okay, you still with me? All right, plans for reopening. So did the same type of overview outline that I did with the Plan B last time. So last time I gave you most aggressive, moderately aggressive, and then the least aggressive option, right? But they were all Plan B. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some different options here. Hopefully you've had a chance to kind of look these over, and then we can discuss in a little while. But so Plan A is obviously the most aggressive option. That has the least amount of restrictions and safety requirements. It opens it up a little bit. Right now, that is only available to K-5. So we are planning that the governor will give us the green light to do that for middle school and high school students as well. But that is what Plan A looks like. That's on-site learning, less than safety restrictions. But I do need you guys to keep in mind that no matter what plan we're in, we have to have the remote option. That is a have to this year. You're going to have children that get sent home because they're sick. You're going to have children that do not want to come to school this year, and we have to grant them that option because of fearful. Again, I shared with you the numbers for our medically fragile children. So with all of these choices, there's got to be a remote option for every grade level, every class within our school. So just keep that in mind too. Plan B is moderately aggressive, so it's kind of smack dab in the middle. This is a hybrid model of both on-site and remote learning. So you're going to see a couple of options there. This is the one that last time I shared with you, and we just couldn't figure out a way to meet the middle. So this is going to be, you're going to see a couple of different options in Plan B for where we can go with that potentially. And then of course, Plan C is our least aggressive. That is the safest. That is our remote only option. Okay. All right. So Plan A. So this is our first plan. Plan A. Again, you can kind of look over this, on your page. You'll have to read all of this, but so this is pretty much trying to get children back in the building in a normal as possible schedule. So keeping them here all day long, traditional 8 to 3 schedule. Again, we are planning that middle school and high school would be able to return as well. So this is bringing them all back, everybody back in January. Some positives to this. So all the kids are back on campus. Fantastic. In-person instruction being delivered to all of our kids. And then there's a lot of children with social and emotional needs that are not being met right now because they just don't have that social contact. So there's another positive there. If they're in the building, I can look at you. I can see how you're doing. I can read your facial expressions, things like that. But you will see a lot of challenges with this option. So the biggest challenge for our classes, a lot of our classes switch. So the big piece of that would be, how do we keep the kids in the classroom and then switch the teachers safely? Especially when you get to middle school and high school, those classes are not the same group of kids all day long. So how would we do that? How would we get those kids transitioned in the hallway and be able to safely social distance, things like that, when some of those classes are mixed? Biggest piece here for the teachers, and this is across the board, and I'm just going to be fully transparent with you. Some of the phone calls we've been on, so we have like leadership meetings with those principals and things that are trying to fill teachers right now. Like they are trying to fill those open positions because they're becoming vacant. Some of the teachers have said, enough's enough. I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm gonna go do something else. Like we talked about last time. I might go be a tutor, or I might do something on the side. But there are a lot, and I say a lot, there's 10 on my call on Mondays, and I would say probably 2, 3
3, well, I'm counting myself and the other leader, one of the whole thing, but there's probably 3 or 4 of them that are actively looking for teachers, because they have left. They have gone to a traditional school, or they've gone, they're not doing it anymore. So that's a big thing, a big stress, big burden on teachers right now. They're trying to operate both types of environments for children's learning. So that's a challenge for us. Live streaming limitations. So, and this will be no matter how we bring kids back in, is, how do you live stream at the same time? Do you do your Zoom conference? Well, then you got to make sure that the sound is accurate, that they can hear what you're doing and see what you're doing. How do we record that? Those will be some limitations that we're going to have, and truthfully resources that we have not had to have before that we might need to look into. So those will be some limitations there. I talked to you about spacing. A big concern with our health and wellness group with this plan was not being able to keep the kids in smaller cohorts. That was a concern because there's so many kids at one time. That leaves you limited amount of time to clean in between kids each day. We may have to pay a little extra to have cleaning come in on the weekends to try to do this. And then just safety, exiting and entering. Do we want to have them going out one door and in another door? Well, that's going to put them outside, and are we okay with that? Because we've always been real, keep them inside the building. So, just some things to think about, because this would be potentially bringing back the entire population. Okay. So that is why that one is the most aggressive. And I'm going to skip real quick before I get into Plan B. And Plan C is the least aggressive. It is staying remote. So that is just remaining all remote instruction for the next quarter. All right. So Plan B. So we came up with a couple of different options here. Okay, let me just start. So we came up with a couple of different options. Then I met with Health and Wellness, and they tried to add 2 more options. And I was like, okay, we already have too many to look at. Let's just narrow it down and try to critique what we've got, because we were going to be looking at 12 different options. So they have been phenomenal. What I did was try to take the options that we had and kind of tweak them to fit what they were sharing, what they thought were very important. So I greatly appreciate their feedback on these. So reopening plan, option 1. So if you take a look at this one, of course, we are hoping and fingers crossed that, all children are back. Okay, so, middle school, high school, elementary. So this right here is where I start talking about the half days. So a half day schedule, although we'll talk about the inconvenience, would allow some positives to take place. So what kids would do is they'd be at school for half a day, then they would go home for the rest of the day, and they would still be responsible for any type of assignments, instructions, things like that took place in the classroom. But their instructional piece would be in face-to-face. So that would be the opportunity where they, instead of the Canvas conferences that they sit in on, is face-to-face instruction. And so the kids that are at home, they couldn't be there. That's where we have to look at recording that and posting that on the Canvas. Regardless, we're not getting rid of Canvas. Canvas will still operate between now and the end of the year and into next year. So this would be, they'd all be here during the daytime, and then they would go home for half a day. So what are some positives here to this half-day schedule? So positives are the teachers are teaching that in-person instruction in the morning, and then they're working on remote assignments and students that are not in the building in the afternoon. This gives teachers the opportunity to manage the students equitably between those that are on site and those that are at home. So it gives them opportunities to do that. Positives, face-to-face instruction. That's always positive. Next bullet point, time to clean. So that would give us time between the half day to when we start the next day for the cleaning crew, because I'm going to be honest, it's not going to be cleaning like it used to be. They're not going to be able to handle all of that in just 2 or 3 hours at night. We're going to have to add on to that. So it gives them more time to get all these classrooms deeply cleaned each day versus just once or twice a week. So another positive would be the student stamina that I kind of talked about. Let's get them back in the routine of coming back to school and having to sit in the classroom. Again, not a whole lot of moving around. They're probably going to have to kind of stay put where they are until we start trying to wean some of these safety procedures out. But for now, we're keeping them in those cohorts and in those pods. And so another positive would just be reducing the teacher burnout and the teacher stress.
I can visualize, okay, I got these assignments, this is what I'm gonna do, or these kids, when they're here with me, then I'm gonna eat some lunch, then I'm gonna come back, and the rest of my day is gonna be with the kids on the remote. I'm giving you feedback, I'm grading assignments, I'm getting stuff ready for the next day. So visually, it's a better option for our teachers. So challenges, of course, big challenge here would be family schedules. Being able to pick your kid up at lunchtime, that's gonna be tough for working families. So this would be something that we would really need to look into, our childcare programs or after-school programs, and potentially being able to offer something like that. Of course, a safe environment and be able to kind of separate the kids out. But that's a big one. Can you come get your kids in the middle of the day? That could be difficult for families that are working. Other challenges, like I said earlier, technology. How do we record what we're doing during the daytime and get that to the families, the kids that are at home? And then, of course, again, safety in the hallways. How do we move these kids around? Do we just move the teachers, leave them there? How does that work for our older kids? Option 2 is very similar, but this one's a little less aggressive than that one. This one splits it up. Okay, so this one takes another half-day schedule, but puts our elementary through 7th grade kids here in the morning, and then our high school kids here in the afternoon. So there's a couple of positives there. So developmentally, younger children work better in the morning, and older children work better in the afternoon. Okay, so that's one positive there. Another positive is that the kids are back on campus. So they're back on campus in some way, shape, or form. Another positive would be there's a limited amount of kids on campus at one time. So you've got half the school ultimately here in the morning and then half the school here in the afternoon. The reason we chose K7, we've run into a few issues with that because there are some middle school classes that overlap. So there's some flex with that would be maybe just elementary and then do middle school, high school in the afternoon. Because when you get into 8th grade, you start taking high school classes. And so it would just be, that could be another option, just elementary in the morning and then middle school, high school in the afternoon. Other positives, of course, there's time to clean in those classrooms. Another positive, what I've been saying this whole time, but the teachers have time to be able to plan for both groups of kids. The cleaning guys, like I said, would be able to do that. If elementary are here in the morning, they do elementary buildings in the afternoon and then flip-flop for middle school and high school folks. So we do have cleaning folks that are here on a normal basis all day long, so it would just be, a matter of scheduling. Challenges, same as I mentioned before, because it's a half-day schedule. You may have families that are not able to pick their kids up at lunchtime or drop their kids off at lunchtime. That may be difficult to organize, picking up and dropping off. Same thing with technology being an issue and in safety. How are we moving these kids from class to class? And the last one is the least aggressive of the moderately aggressive options. This one has a more staggered approach. So just to give you a heads up, our health and wellness crew, based on all the guidance again that we've had, they have leaned in favor of this option because it is a slower approach to bringing kids back onto campus. So this would be same thing would be for K5. We would have same thing with a half-day schedule, but this one would be bringing back just our kindergarten through 2nd grade classes in January, keeping them in a cohort, and then in February, adding our 3rd through 5th grade students back on campus. And then in March, or potentially the February 22nd, when our academic break is over, bringing back our middle school and high school students on campus. And so we've been toying around with ideas of, again, middle school, high school, do we keep them on the same schedule that they're used to virtually, or do we switch that and just do core classes so we can cohort it that way? They're a little tricky, and just truth and transparency, that question was bounced around all the leaders on my call yesterday, and everybody's kind of trying to work that out as well. So it's just because it's not like a kindergarten classroom where these kids stay together for all of their classes and that's your cohort. It's a little bit different with middle school and high school. So positive to this one, all kids are back on campus again, which is what we're looking for. You have a more limited amount of students on campus at any given time. So it goes back to kind of what we presented in September with the staggered approach. Kind of goes back to that, tells us about cohorts. And this option gives us time to clean the classrooms prior to kids returning the next day,
Teachers have time to teach those in-person children and the remote learning children again. And so those are some of the positives. Some challenges, of course, are gonna be the same as you see on the other slides. Family schedules, making this work. There's some other negatives I didn't put on there, not all the kids are back. The older children would be still continuing to be remote until about March, into February. And then, of course, moving around in the hallways, safety, those kind of things. So a big one for that one, and already told the health and wellness, so they'll probably tell you on this one, but I said, look, they're not gonna like them coming back in March. And I said, because they feel like it's the end of the school year, it's not enough time, go and bring it back now. And that's why they were like, well, what if we did end of February? It's not that much earlier, but a big piece for our teachers on our health and wellness call, went back to what I kind of spoke about in September, was about getting them ready for testing. That is the most stressful time for teachers and for kids and for parents. Like, that is the most stressful time, and especially this year, with trying to make sure we're covering all of the material in this virtual setting. There were some things that they kicked around about, these kids might not officially come back off campus until March, but in January and February, we might be able to do some type of like a cohort group or a focus group, kind of what I mentioned earlier, where you bring back certain groups of kids and things like that. Kind of, there's some flexibility there. So those are all of the options. As of now, today, Tuesday, October 20th.
So option 3, it completely abandons the half days.
Okay.
Everybody just comes back full, just staggered.
Still half day,
Still
still half day with the intent that hopefully we go to go full
for.
for the fourth quarter.
So let me ask you this. So what I understand, whatever option that we pick, you still have 16% of the teachers saying they're not coming back to campus.
As of that survey, yes.
And then 36%
Or maybe.
maybe.
And none of these options have been shared with anybody else yet. So, that this was based on the week on, the week off, Plan B type approach. That was the survey that the staff got.
Well, if option 3 brings everyone back full time at school, aren't the teachers still going to run into the same problem where they don't have that half a day to help the online students?
So we're hoping that if we were able to do the half day schedule, at least for the quarter 3, they would be getting into like a routine. Ideally, we always try to see light at the end of the tunnel. So we do want some sense of normalcy. But again, we don't want to burn them out in the process and basically throw away everything we've been working hard for this whole time. So that would be our goal. And that would give them a little more time to figure it out. So, the third quarter would be the half day schedule with the intent that the fourth quarter we would go whole day. And then maybe by then we could figure out how they're going to do that. It would be a better transition than just jumping right into it. Because a lot of them are spending a lot of time, nights and weekends, and a lot of things are being sacrificed right now for our teachers because they do want to give our kids the best education.
So we've got 16% saying no, 36% saying they don't know, but we've got 76% of the parents wanting some type of hybrid.
I personally think that by removing the maybe option will give us a clear direction. And we put that there because they weren't sure, and we had them kind of list out their reasonings for that. But I think that some of this hesitation and the reason for the maybes and the no's because they didn't know the plan. They didn't know what our plan B was, because plan B looks totally different for all of those different schools. So they were concerned with, well, what does that look like for Clover Garden? That was a big part of that.
Ms. Braden, do y'all have any questions for Ms. Vaughn or Nina while they're online here? I don't want to hold you guys up all night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So the last page, and again, we'll discuss the rest of this, are just the programs that are still pending.
So the before and after school program, the buses, any after school clubs, band practice, our lunch program, all of that stuff we have put on hold. So I just would like us to have a discussion on that, moving forward. If we have kids on campus, are there any of those that we would be willing to potentially, say, hey, again, like I mentioned, if we do a half-day program, we look at the after-school option, and again, it's very detailed in that manual about how that looks. And so maybe that would be something that we might need to say, you know, the rest of these can stay pending for now, but let's try to, you know, get this program going for you know, when we return in January. But that's it. That is it for the presentation.
Thank you, Greg, and I know a lot of work went into that, and again, thank you to you and the committee and staff for being diligent and making sure we have some clear plans that we can now review and determine how we can move forward. Okay, any further questions, or comments or open session? Okay. Need a motion to move into closed session, general statute 143-18.11A51. We'll have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Huffines, second. Mr. Hackney, all in favor? We will be moving into closed session at 8:42 PM. Once closed session is over, we will come out to complete any votes that are required.